After my childhood sweetheart, whom I had loved for 10 years, married the fated heroine, I ended up entering a marriage alliance with his younger brother. That younger brother used to trail after me with puppy dog eyes, shyly calling me sister. Now he's a cold, untouchable tech industry CEO who treats me with absolute indifference. We agreed to sleep together twice a week, just enough to try for a child, and once I got pregnant, we would live our own separate lives. And to be fair, he was very dedicated to this arrangement. Always punctual. Never absent. But after 6 months, I still wasn't pregnant. Just as I was about to suggest getting checked at the hospital, a sudden flood of glowing text scrolled across my vision. The side female lead is so dumb. She hasn't realized the younger brother switched her melatonin with birth control. LOL, she thinks marrying the younger brother will make the male lead regret it. Joke's on her, he loves the female lead to death and only agreed to this marriage to avenge her baby. Good thing she never calls him husband. He'd die of disgust. Stunned, I turned toward the young man lounging on the sofa and tested softly, husband? What? David West's long fingers froze mid-movement. He abruptly lifted his gaze, dark eyes locking onto me. What did you just call me? Does he really hate me that much? His expression startled me, but I quickly steadied myself and joked lightly, it's nothing. I just thought it sounded fun. Why are you reacting like that? Still unwilling to give up, I lifted a hand to brush back my hair. The silk strap of my nightdress slid off my shoulder. I walked over and swung a leg over his lap, lowering my voice into something soft and teasing. You married me, didn't you? So why can't I call you that? David's thighs tensed instantly. His handsome, sharply sculpted face turned aside as if desperately avoiding the bare skin of my chest. Do as you like. He paused for a few seconds, as if forcing down how much the title repulsed him, and when he finally spoke, his voice was hoarse but cold. Get up. Stop fooling around. I still have work to finish. Right then, the barrage exploded again. What's going on? Why is the side female lead suddenly seducing the younger brother? No. He's way too sensitive to her body. They're going to end up going at it from the sofa to the window to the staircase to the bedroom mirror, aren't they? Relax, relax, he hates her. He only loves the real heroine. Unless necessary, he'll never touch her again. His self-control is God tier. He won't touch her +1. He won't touch her +1 billion. I froze in place. Then quickly wrapped my arms around David's neck, brushed a kiss against the corner of his lips, and swayed my hips slightly. David, since things are already like this, why don't you come to my room tonight? You. David's breath turned scorching. The corners of his beautiful eyes were tinged red. His long, defined fingers finally tightened around my waist. My heart leapt. I relaxed in relief. But then. Tomorrow is the scheduled night. We agreed on twice a week. With a low, controlled groan, he shoved me aside without mercy. Moments later, I heard the sharp bang of a door slamming upstairs. At the same time, the barrage erupted in cheers and mockery. My heart went cold. I didn't sleep at all that night. From the barrage, I finally pieced everything together. Apparently, the world I lived in was a CEO romance novel with 2 male leads. The female protagonist, the fated one, was Jessica Lynn, the girl who stole away my childhood sweetheart, John West. And in anger, I agreed to marry David West, not knowing that David also did it for Jessica's sake. He suffered watching his brother and Jessica be together, and in the original plot, he eventually locked me up, drove me into despair, and I died in childbirth, alone and unnoticed in an empty villa. A shiver ran down my spine. I couldn't keep reading. I never knew David loved Jessica too. I never knew he had grown so twisted, and so disgusted with me. But when he was little, David used to like me. Whenever I went to the West household, he would trail after me and secretly shove the snacks he liked into my hands. He would even sketch me nibbling on treats, then ask nervously, does sister like it? Before I left for school at 16, he even asked me to go see a movie with him. Only now, looking back. The year David returned to the country, wasn't that exactly the year Jessica started visiting the West family? The next morning, the moment David left the house, I immediately told Assistant Song to take that bottle of melatonin to the lab for testing. Then I headed straight to the basement myself. According to the barrage, David had planned to imprison me from the moment we got married, and had even prepared all sorts of toys and restraints to torment me. It took me a while to search, but sure enough, in his recreation room I found a black sheepskin trunk. When I opened it, chains and leather whips lay neatly inside. Good grief. I sat on the floor, stunned for a very long time. Right then, my assistant called. Boss, it's confirmed, the bottle is filled with birth control pills. But Professor Yi said the medication has no harmful side effects. It can even help regulate your hormones, so you don't need to worry. Alright. I took a long breath, glanced again at the trunk full of restraints, and said calmly, "Have the lawyer draft a divorce agreement for me. As soon as possible." Huh? What's going on? How did the side female lead find out the younger brother's secret? And she wants a divorce? No. She's awful and annoying, yes, but she's pale, gorgeous, tiny waist, long legs. If she divorces, won't we lose the spicy imprisonment arc? Quiet. She's obviously planning to use divorce to cause trouble for the heroine. The younger brother won't fall for it. Who knows, maybe all the spicy scenes you want will happen at once later. Excited, babies? Not excited. I covered my face, exhausted by the barrage. John West had already ruined my best years. I absolutely would not let this unhinged younger brother ruin the rest of my life. I returned to my study, handled the company's urgent matters, then took a long nap. By evening, the lawyer had already emailed me the expedited divorce papers. Triple overtime pay really does improve efficiency. After a shower, I was just about to sit down and read through the agreement when someone knocked twice on the bedroom door. "I'm coming in." David pushed the door open. His gaze swept over the thin robe covering my nightdress, then slowly lifted to meet my startled eyes. His voice came out low and husky. "Today is one of our scheduled nights. Did you forget?" Well, after the past 24 hours, I had forgotten. And besides, how about we skip tonight? David's gaze darkened. "Why? Your period isn't coming yet." "I'm just not in the mood today." He was silent for a moment. Then suddenly he shut the door, pressed me against the wall, and pinned me with one leg. "Is this because John took Jessica to an event today? Because he bought her that limited edition necklace? Why does everything always lead back to Jessica?" A wave of hurt surged through me. What did I do to make you all think I'm so petty? That all I do is envy Jessica every day? No one dares say you're petty. Fine, what I don't like is you breaking our agreement because of my brother. David lowered his head and pressed a kiss to my forehead. His hard abs pinned me so firmly it almost hurt. "I'm letting you off for him once. But if there's a next time, and a third time, I won't accept it." Wow, the younger brother's acting is incredible. He knows the side female lead is evil, but he still says things like this to lower her guard. Exactly. This is how she gets fooled into self-destruction every time. Saying she doesn't want to do it? Please. She's just angry for the heroine. The revenge sex arc is coming. The barrage made my blood boil. But remembering that trunk in the basement, I backed away instinctively, feeling both irritated and terrified. What if he tied me up with those things, just for Jessica? Wait. A thought flashed. He hates when I call him husband, right? So, if I disgust him thoroughly tonight, I'll be safe, won't I? Honestly, even yesterday that word had been hard to force out. Because no matter how handsome David was now, I still remembered the boy who used to follow me around with watery puppy eyes, whispering, "Sister," in shy embarrassment. But that little brother filter was completely shattered by now. I leaned toward him without hesitation and said sweetly, "Husband, don't blame me, this has nothing to do with your brother. I swear I'm not calling him husband today. Just let me off tonight, okay, don't call me that. Don't." David suddenly lowered his head and covered my mouth with his. The air was stolen right out of my lungs. Within seconds, my legs had turned weak from the sheer force of the kiss. What the hell? He was clearly furious, his voice was trembling earlier. Why does he still have this much energy? I struggled, pushing at him, but he caught my hands and pinned them above my head. A dizzying spin later. I was already pressed beneath David's solid, burning body on the bed. Unbelievable. He hates me, is disgusted by me, yet still sleeps with me? I cried. Really cried. The tears wouldn't stop at all. And then I understood. With someone like David, trying to disgust him only makes him seek revenge even more intensely. After lying there for a long time, my breathing finally calmed. But when I tried to step onto the carpet, a pair of strong arms wrapped around me from behind. I almost burst into tears again. "No, David." He paused. Maybe he was still in a good mood from earlier, because he actually let out a soft laugh. Then he lifted me into his arms and murmured, "Don't think too much. I'm just helping you wash." At once, the barrage erupted again. Whoa, shouldn't this be live-streamed? Premium members love these educational hygiene scenes. Woo, the younger brother is 189 centimeters, right? His hands must be huge, long fingers, sharp knuckles. He has that lean muscle type, bet they're doing things in the bathroom right now, hee hee. After that exhausting night, I didn't wake up until nearly noon the next day. As usual, Saturdays meant lunch at my parents' house. I hadn't had time to review the divorce papers, so I rushed out the door. Drowsiness clung to me the whole ride. Meanwhile, David looked radiant, his sharp profile at the wheel was annoyingly handsome. When we arrived at the West residence, John's car was already parked in the garage. But inside the living room, only my mother was sipping tea. I greeted her softly, then went over to help her steep the leaves. Even though my parents had grown increasingly biased over the past year, I still loved them. I tried to visit when I could, brought them small surprises, and did my best to be a good daughter. After warmly greeting David, my mom looked me up and down, frowning slightly. "You came back like this? No makeup at all?" I blinked. I'd done my hair before leaving, and with fair skin, I looked decent even without makeup. "I'm just visiting my own parents, why would I need makeup for that?" "Why wouldn't you wear a little makeup? Jessica always looks so put together. She shows up pretty every single time." Her words had barely landed when John and Jessica stepped out from my father's study. The moment John saw me, his expression turned cold. "Kathy, you're here." Jessica, on the other hand, smiled sweetly and ran up to link arms with me. Sure enough, the barrage reappeared, lively as ever. Our baby girl with just a bit of blush looks so pretty. Even though she comes from a humble background, she acts way more graceful than that real heiress. No wonder her parents love our sweet baby more than the actual daughter. The comments made my skin crawl, but I still forced a polite exchange with Jessica. "See how much Jessica likes you," my mom beamed. "Be sensible, okay? Let's not bring up the past. You two should sit down and have a good heart-to-heart today." Smiling, she stood up. "I'm going to check on lunch in the kitchen. Johnny," she added, turning back, "take Jess to the study to chat with your father." "Wait, David," she added, then left. Once she was gone, Jessica suddenly gave David a knowing wink. "I finished that ethics AI thesis I told you about. You promised you'd help me review it, remember?" David gave her shoulder a light pat and said with a smile, "Your company literally does AI. With your background, if you don't get top marks, no one will believe it." He furrowed his brows faintly and glanced toward me. I immediately looked away. If he already promised her, why was he looking at me? "Sure, send it to my email," he replied casually. Then he turned to John. "Bro, go ahead. I'll step out for a work call." The living room quickly emptied, leaving only Jessica and me. I had no interest in talking. But Jessica was clearly excited. "Kathy," she said brightly, "don't you think this necklace is pretty?" She took off the pink diamond necklace from around her neck and held it in front of me. It was the exact one I had seen in the photo on John's shoulder yesterday. "It's nice," I said flatly. "But don't you think this little charm looks familiar?" she added with a teasing smile. Annoyed, I gave it another glance, and then my eyes froze. Dangling from the clasp was a small silver tiger. It was John's zodiac animal. And I had spent 3 months carving that exact charm by hand. It was a gift for our 10-year anniversary. On that very night, under the stunning northern lights, John had knelt down on one knee and proposed to me. He said I was his only princess in this lifetime, and he would love me forever. He swore, in front of time itself, never to fail me. From the age of 15 to 25, I had believed that every first, every sweet moment, every promise had led to a happy ending. Who could have imagined that just 3 months later, John would pressure me to cancel our engagement, for a newly arrived intern named Jessica? "Johnny said the charm was too childish," Jessica said with a little laugh. "He was going to throw it away. But I thought, it was your heartfelt gift, sis Kathy. It would have been too cruel to waste it. So I figured out a way, see? I added it to the necklace clasp. It's hidden by the diamond most of the time anyway. It won't dull the sparkle. Just like how some outdated people can be tucked out of sight too. Don't you agree, sis Kathy?" After everything with John, I had long since let go. I was also tired. "Oh? I heard this necklace once belonged to one of a certain foreign prince's 10 mistresses. Did you know that part?" Jessica's smile faltered. "So what?" "Johnny bid on it for me in front of everyone, he won it fair and square." "You like it too, don't you, Kathy? Why don't you try it on?" she said, suddenly standing up to fasten it around my neck. I didn't know what got into her, but just as I was stepping back. Clatter. The clay teapot on the coffee table tipped over. Scalding tea splashed across Jessica's hand, instantly raising 2 blisters. "Kathy, what are you doing?" Jessica yelped in pain, eyes going red. I was startled, hadn't even reacted, when my mother rushed out from the kitchen, cradled Jessica's hand with visible distress, and began blowing on it. Then she turned to glare at me. "Kathy, Jess has been nothing but kind to you. Why would you hurt her? Did I raise you to be like this?" Jess, are you okay?" John came charging out from the study. The moment he saw the necklace in Jessica's hand, his face darkened in fury. "Kathy, was this because of that ugly charm? If you wanted it back, you could have just asked. Why hurt Jessica over it? I really don't know how you turned into someone this cruel." "Johnny, don't be angry at sis Kathy," Jessica said softly. "I'm okay." I was fuming, my chest tight with anger. She knocked it over herself. It had nothing to do with me. You're still denying it, my father said, stepping out of the study with a heartbroken expression. There were only 2 of you in the room. This is what happens when we spoil a child too much. Look at how you've turned out. Aren't you going to apologize to Jess? I stood there alone, stiff and cold all over. It was always like this. I hadn't done anything wrong, and yet everyone blamed me. Everyone always took Jessica's side. John the First could understand. But my own parents? I'd had enough. Not for another minute. Not for another second. You'd rather believe an outsider than your own daughter? Well, if you don't want me anymore, then I don't want you either. Choking back tears, I turned and rushed for the door, only to run right into David, who had just come back from his call. What's wrong? What happened? He caught me firmly, steadying me. His gaze flicked toward the living room, and his tone sank low. It's nothing. But whatever I do from now on has nothing to do with you. We're getting divorced. I didn't notice the subtle tremor that passed through David's eyes. I just shoved him aside with a hoarse voice and bolted for the garage. What's going on? Why is the side character breaks with family arc happening so early? Her little design company hasn't even been crushed yet. He's not ready to lock her up. He's definitely going to chase after her and start saying sweet things to calm her down. Just watch. Sure enough, David caught up to me just as I entered the garage. He gently wiped away the tear at the corner of my eye with his thumb. I didn't protect you in the living room. That was my failure. I'll do better next time. But you can't just divorce me because of their mistake. I won't accept that reason, and I won't agree to a divorce. Just like the barrage predicted. I was furious and humiliated. Even if you were there, you'd still take their side. Jessica's side. You know I'd stand by you. When have I ever not? A flicker of pain flashed in David's dark eyes. His voice lowered. Are you upset because my brother took Jessica's side, and now you think I'm no different? I froze for a second. But then nodded with quiet conviction. It's not about him. You're the same as them. In your heart, you've always sided with Jessica. You think I'm the villain in this story. This marriage? I'm ending it. I'm moving out the moment we get home. Let me go. David gripped the handle of my bag tighter. He looked at me in silence for a long time before finally saying, fine. If you're determined to divorce me, I won't stop you. But this involves property division. That's not something we can settle in a day or two. Stay here for now. It'll be easier to discuss the terms face to face. Once everything's finalized, you can move out. Deal? I had no intention of taking a dime from him anyway. The divorce agreement had been drafted since yesterday. But after thinking it over, I nodded. Fine. But the twice-a-week rule is off. Don't touch me again. All right. Whatever you say. David agreed readily enough. But once he got the agreement, he started using work as an excuse. Too busy to read it, he said. 1 week passed. Then 2. And during that time, just as the barrage had predicted, he treated me even better than before. Every time I dropped the kid off at school, someone would deliver lunch to my office, exactly the food I liked. He bought me an entire set of emerald jewelry, had my zodiac animal carved into the clasp by hand. He even spent $60 million on an antique imperial inkstone, just because he knew I liked that style. I watched it all with cold detachment, already bracing for the fallout from that disastrous visit to my parents' house. After I left that day, my parents wouldn't stop calling or texting, just to scold me. We raised you to be kind. And look at you now, always scheming and hurting others. Thank God Jessica is generous and kind enough to tolerate you. Come back on Saturday and apologize properly. We'll forgive you then. You're wondering why we don't trust you? After all the things you've done to Jessica? Don't tell us we imagined all that. And John? Even worse. He called me every day, accusing me of jealousy, of malice, of being unrepentant. Demanding that I apologize to Jessica. I was fed up. I blocked every single number of his. But he just kept switching to new ones. In the end, I stopped answering unfamiliar calls altogether. I thought I'd finally shaken him off, until the day he showed up at my door. One of the villa maids assumed he was David's brother, so she let him in and had him wait in the living room. But John grew impatient and marched straight up the stairs to my bedroom. I had just stepped out of the shower, wearing only a lace robe, barely covered by a silk wrap, when he pushed the door open. Still pretending to be innocent? John's eyes swept down my body, slow and deliberate. His gaze turned dark. Please. There's no part of you I haven't seen. I was livid. John, I'm your brother's wife now. You're the CEO of a major group, can you have a little decency? And who's the one without decency here? John let out a cold laugh. If you hadn't refused to apologize, if you weren't so stubborn, I wouldn't have had to come all the way here. Kathy, Jessica's never done anything wrong. But you've hurt her again and again. This time, you're going to bow your head and apologize, properly. I nearly burst out laughing. Even after everything, he was still this shameless. I pulled my robe tighter and sneered. She knew you were engaged and still spilled coffee on herself just to get your attention. She called you in the middle of the night, playing helpless about a presentation. She threw herself into a pool so you'd have to carry her out. That's your idea of someone who's never done anything wrong? Love isn't a crime. John roared, humiliated. Jessica did those things because she loves me. Neither of us has ever wronged her. But you're so blinded by jealousy you're trying to tear us apart. He suddenly stepped forward and grabbed me. Kathy, admit it. You just can't live without me. That's why you dressed like this today, to seduce me, isn't it? What, hoping I'd give you one last night before your dear husband comes home? Let me go, John. You're disgusting. He yanked the robe off my shoulders. And that's when footsteps thundered up the stairs. John heard the footsteps too and immediately let go of me. But it was already too late. What are you two doing? Bro, why did you come upstairs? David's face was as cold as a sheet of ice. Even from across the room, the weight of his presence was suffocating. David, you're finally back. John's expression flickered with panic for a split second, but he quickly recovered and pulled David aside with a forced smile. Let me explain. It's not what it looked like. Oh ho, the brothers are putting on a show again in front of the side female lead. But in private? They're thick as thieves. The little brother doesn't care about her at all. His heart belongs to our baby heroine. Once the show's over, they'll team up to crush her tiny company. The imprisonment arc we've been waiting for is almost here. I ignored the barrage and turned to look at the two men talking quietly by the stairs. David had just returned from work. His sleeves were rolled up to his elbows, exposing the veins on his forearms as his fingers gripped John's arm. Whatever John said next made David let out a tight, controlled smile. Relieved, John visibly relaxed. I sucked in a shallow breath and quietly closed the door behind me. About 10 minutes later, I heard footsteps descending the stairs. Then my bedroom door creaked open again. David stepped in, ignoring the glare I shot at him. He strode to the bed, placing his arms on either side of me. I was cornered between his tall, burning body and the mattress, forced to lean back. David, what are you doing? Don't forget what you promised me. I didn't forget. I'm just here to check something. Check what? Rip. The silk robe I had just changed into was torn down the front. Check where he touched you. David's voice was low and hoarse, with a strange, wounded note to it. Before I could protest, he bit down hard on the side of my neck. I gasped. Are you a dog? I dated him for 10 years, and now you're bothered by it? Isn't it a little late? What happened before doesn't count. David's tone was unusually possessive today. You're my wife now. You belong only to me. Your body should only smell like me. Asshole, I laughed bitterly, my hands pushing at him to no avail. Did you forget we're getting divorced? We're not divorced yet, so you're still mine. I wanted to keep arguing, but the words wouldn't come out. Because he was actually checking. Thoroughly. I stared up at the ceiling, making soft, stifled noises, until fireworks seemed to explode behind my eyes. There. Now every inch of you, inside and out, smells like me. David's eyes were rimmed red, his breath burning against my cheek. My lips and nose were still wet with traces of him. Face flushed, I weakly shoved his face away in shame. Get out. Handle the rest yourself. The next day, the housekeeper told me he stayed in the bathroom for over an hour that evening. I also heard he'd issued strict new rules. From now on, no one, not even family, could enter the villa without his permission. And just like that, the barrage proved right again. The West Group had officially teamed up with my parents to begin crushing the little design company I'd built from scratch. I had won national awards for my work, my taste and design skills had always spoken for themselves. Even without West Group or the White family's backing, my firm could have survived on its own. But John used his connections to pressure other companies into dropping their collaborations with me. Then my father called, seriously, this time. I think you're beyond help. Maybe losing your company will finally teach you to reflect. If you ever want your job back, you'll do the smart thing, apologize to Jess and behave. I ignored the tight, dull ache in my chest and hung up. While driving, David spoke up, almost casually. There's a tech company from the US planning to enter the domestic market. They're currently looking for a design firm. The founder's an old classmate of mine. If you're interested, I could put in a word. He's baiting her. Pretending to help, but it's all a trap to ruin her reputation in the industry. Girl, this is your last chance. Run while you still can. Don't fall for it. Pawn everything in that fancy villa and flee the country. I raised a brow. Wow. The barrage suddenly gotten really helpful, huh? Sure, I'd appreciate that, I said, smiling faintly. But it doesn't change the fact that we're still getting divorced. Please review the agreement soon. David pressed his lips together. Okay. I'll look at it when I have the time. Another week passed. He still hadn't found the time. And now, John and Jessica's engagement party was just around the corner. Apparently, both John and Jessica's mother had planned to keep me off the guest list. They wanted to teach me a lesson. But Jessica, in all her gracious kindness, insisted I be invited. The barrage, which had once been annoyingly active, suddenly went silent. As if afraid to spoil something important. 3 days before the engagement banquet, I asked David, "Isn't that hotel still managed by your uncle?" David didn't hesitate. "Yes." I smiled faintly. "Then, could you do me a favor?" On the day of the engagement banquet, I wore a custom silver off-shoulder mermaid gown and arrived arm in arm with David, instantly stealing the spotlight. Uncle and Aunt's faces both darkened in unison. John's eyes, however, were a storm of shock and dread. Jessica, on the other hand, acted as if nothing was amiss, greeting me affectionately, just like old times. I responded with a polite but distant smile and offered her my best wishes. After the ceremony, the guests began to mingle freely. David, hailed as the most promising rising star in the tech world, was quickly surrounded by old money elites and eager investors. I excused myself, saying I was bored, and drifted away. As expected, I had barely taken a few steps when Jessica appeared. Still wearing that delicate white lotus expression, she smiled sweetly at me. "Kathy," she said, "do you know why people always misunderstand you no matter what you do? Why, even when you try so hard to live, to work, to please, they still prefer me? Why John bends over backwards for me? Why your parents adore me, their goddaughter, more than you? Why even David actually loves me?" I looked at her calmly. "Oh? And why is that?" She giggled, then suddenly grabbed my hand tightly. "Because I'm the female lead of this world," she said. "I only need a few clever tricks to win everyone's love. You're just the annoying side character. No matter how hard you try, you're doomed to be discarded. You think you've outshined me tonight?" She sneered. "Starting today, everything you have will be mine." As soon as the words left her lips, she gave my hand a violent tug and threw herself backward. Crash. The champagne tower collapsed with a deafening crash. "Kathy. Why would you do this to me?" Jessica lay in the shattered mess, tears brimming in her eyes, ready to fall, playing the same old trick. "Kathy, I told you we shouldn't have let you attend the banquet." John was the first to rush over. He took off his jacket and draped it over Jessica protectively. "You just had to humiliate Jess, didn't you? You had to ruin everyone's evening?" My mother followed closely behind, flustered and alarmed. All eyes turned toward me, standing alone in the center of the chaos. Whispers, mockery, pitying gazes, malicious smiles. Ridicule, condemnation, disgust. But this time, I didn't panic. I didn't protest. I simply lifted my chin and said, "I didn't push her. She tried to frame me." John opened his mouth, ready to explode. But I turned away from him, looking straight at the man striding toward me. "David. Do you have proof that Jessica framed me?" David froze. Then, within 2 seconds, a spark ignited in his handsome face, one I had never seen before. 3 days ago, I had asked him to help me install more than a dozen hidden surveillance cameras throughout this banquet hall. 2 of them were placed specifically to track Jessica's movements. If what the on-screen bullet comments had said were true, that David was in love with Jessica, then all he had to do now was deny my claim. And right here, right now, I would give up on him completely. Give up everything. I was placing the biggest bet of my life. All in, on him. After all, our teachers used to say, "Don't trust strangers." So why should I believe random bullet comments that suddenly appeared from nowhere? My 10-year relationship had already been shattered by one scumbag. Why should I let another ruin my ability to feel love again? I felt David's warmth every time he defended me, not out of strategy, as the comments claimed, but from genuine care. I felt the joy in his embrace, real joy, not just desire. He remembered all my preferences, from food to clothing. He stayed up all night by my bedside when I had a fever. He offered to forego a prenuptial agreement, willing to share billions with me upon marriage. He was the little boy who, at 8 years old, secretly drew me and taped my picture to his wall. He was the teenager who, at 16, accidentally brushed the back of my hand in a dark theater, and blushed the entire way home. I wouldn't let a scumbag's betrayal make me turn my back on a sincere heart. I believed in David. Even if the whole world betrayed me, I believed he wouldn't. And I knew, from the look in his eyes, that he understood what I had done. And that's why his expression lit up like that. He strode toward me, pulled me tightly into his arms, then took my hand and turned to Jessica and John. "Brother," he said calmly, "you probably don't know this, but to ensure your engagement banquet would proceed smoothly, I had several security cameras installed in this ballroom in advance." If you want to know what really happened between my wife and Jessica just now, just check the footage. Then he took out his phone and called the control room. Jessica panicked instantly, her face draining of all color. Wait, there's no need for that. I don't blame my sister. Let's not make this more serious. But it was too late. The footage of her clearly shoving me played across the massive screen in the banquet hall. The guest's condemnation instantly shifted to her. Jessica, how could you do something like this? I always thought you were the kindest person here. John muttered in disbelief, as if his worldview had just collapsed. Even my mother stepped away from Jessica, distancing herself in silence. No, it's not like that, let me explain, Jessica cried out, voice shaky. But, I'm a Wong. No matter what I do, I'll be forgiven, right? She tried to argue, still in denial, but by now no one was willing to listen. Let's go, I said softly, glancing at David with a smile, satisfied with the farce finally coming to an end. But David smirked, gently squeezed my hand, and said, wait. I actually prepared one more gift for you today, to vent your anger. He turned coldly to John. Brother, given the West Group's poor financial performance this year, and your questionable staffing and project decisions driven by personal affairs, I've joined forces with our two uncles and other major shareholders to propose a board motion to replace the CEO. You might want to start preparing your explanation for the board. What? John was stunned, his eyes bloodshot. You already have your own company. Do you have to take West Group from me too? David shrugged indifferently, not bothering to argue, then turned to me with a soft voice. Shall we go home? Okay. I chuckled. So that's why he hadn't answered John's calls that day, he'd been holding back this trump card. Wait, Kathy, my mother suddenly called out cautiously behind us. I paused slightly, expression stiffening, but David immediately stepped in front of me and said with a cold brow, Ms. White, in the past year, you've been blind to right and wrong, allowing my wife to suffer deeply. She still can't forgive you. If you truly wish to mend your relationship with your daughter, I suggest you reflect on your actions and show some genuine sincerity. Everyone, we'll take our leave now. With that, David led me through the crowd, hand in hand. Once we were outside, he could no longer hold back. He scooped me up in his arms and carried me all the way into the car. You always believed me, didn't you? Even the divorce, was that just to fool me? How did you dare, how could you trust me that much? As soon as we sat down, David buried his face in my neck, rubbing like a giant puppy, so overjoyed he almost whimpered. Gone was the cold, domineering man from the banquet. I replied softly, yes, I tricked you on purpose. Why? He raised his head, eyes burning as he stared at me. Of course, the main reason was to fool John's family. But I wasn't going to tell him that. It was punishment, obviously. I raised a finger seriously. First, for scheming against me. From the moment you returned to China, to orchestrating the marriage, and even the way you subtly made me grow dependent on you, you planned it all, didn't you? David's ears turned red. Yes. Second, for pretending to be distant even though you liked me. Why did you insist on limiting us to twice a week? You said if we had a baby, we'd go our separate ways, but you secretly swapped my heat suppressants for birth control. I couldn't even tell what you really wanted. I wasn't trying to distance myself, he mumbled, voice nervous. You were with my brother for 10 years. I knew you still loved him, it was too soon to expect you to forget. I was afraid my feelings would make you uncomfortable, or pressure you. So I kept my distance, hoping you'd enjoy what I could give you without pressure, and maybe fall for me slowly. The pills weren't harmful. If you really had a child with me, and then left, I'd be devastated. As for the twice-a-week rule, he paused, visibly flustered. If I didn't restrain myself, I'd want you every single day. By the time he finished, I'd already caught his drift, half amused, half annoyed. What are you, a horny golden retriever? Every day? I'm not a golden retriever, he said seriously. They're not loyal enough. I'd rather be your German shepherd, or a Rottweiler. David looked at me with misty eyes. Even if you don't love me, I'll be loyal to you forever. I couldn't help but laugh at that. I reached out and ruffled his short hair. Who said I don't love you? I gave up on John long ago. I've let go of everything. You know, when you feel like you're drowning in honey, it's never just your own imagination. That's chemistry. I can't pinpoint the exact moment it happened, but I'm sure of one thing now, I really like you. Only you. Really? David's eyes lit up like a teenager's. He leaned in, trying to kiss me. Not yet. I blocked him. There's still one matter left to discuss. The whips and chains in the basement, what were those about? Planning to lock me up and beat me? You found those, he said, voice suddenly low. His arms tightened around my waist. I admit, if you ever tried to leave me, I would lock you up. But beat you? Never. The whips were there in case you got mad at me for imprisoning you. So you could, take it out on me. My eyes widened. Wait, you mean you bought those for me, to whip you with? David nodded like it was only natural, then leaned in for another kiss. I said no. I pushed him away again, then smiled slyly. From now on, I call the shots. Drive us home. Once we got back to the villa, I led him straight into my bedroom. Inside, there was a neatly pressed shirt and suit hanging up, and next to it, a tray full of accessories he'd once prepared for me, except now, they were designed for his use. You, want me to wear this? David's ears turned bright red. Why is it okay for you to tie me up, but not for me to tie you? I huffed. I told you, now I'm in charge. 15 minutes later, David emerged from the dressing room in full gear. The silver clasp of the leather collar at his neck gleamed faintly. 3 buttons on his shirt were undone, and the black straps hugged his chest muscles perfectly. His tailored pants framed his long legs so well it should have been illegal. I narrowed my eyes and said, kneel. The 189 centimeters man knelt obediently, hands behind his back, looking up at me. His breathing was slightly uneven, and his stunning face was flushed pink. Still in my off-shoulder mermaid gown and heels, I strode over and picked up a lambskin whip. I let the black handle trail slowly from his chest, up to his collarbone, his Adam's apple, until it lifted his jaw. Tell me, what am I to you? My wifey. Wrong. Try again. Sister. Still wrong. My, darling. One last chance. David swallowed hard, blush deepening. My queen. Good boy. I smiled at last, tapping his cheek lightly with the handle. Now, as your reward, you may kiss me. I used to chase after love with a blind heart, only to find it waiting patiently right beside me. Now, with David kneeling at my feet and calling me his queen, I finally understand, being loved this fiercely isn't a dream. It's my reality. And I'm never letting go.